28 Heavy Anchorage. Good afternoon, squawk 1550. Go ahead.
The pilot, Kenju Terachi, had described it as being several times larger than his airplane, and his airplane had an elevator in it.
But the Japanese airline incident was hardly unique.
We just had something go right over the top of us.
It's a definite UFO or something like that.
It was a cold November night in 1986. A Japan Airlines cargo flight was cruising over the frozen wilderness of Alaska. Calm skies, steady instruments, nothing unusual. But what happened next would become one of the most astonishing and credible UFO encounters ever recorded in aviation history. A veteran pilot, a former fighter jet captain, with over 10,000 hours of flight time, would radio in a chilling report. Three massive, unidentified objects were following his plane, one of them bigger than an aircraft carrier. This is the story of Japan Airlines Flight 1628. The UFO encounter that stunned the FAA, baffled the U.S. Air Force, and remains unexplained nearly 4 decades later. Let's dive into what really happened that night. On November 17, 1986, Japan Airlines Flight 1628, a Boeing 747 cargo jet, was en route from Paris to Tokyo with a scheduled refueling stop in Anchorage, Alaska. At the controls was Captain Kenju Terachi, a 45-year-old pilot and former fighter pilot in the Japanese Air Self-Defense Force. With him were First Officer Takanori Tamefuji and Flight Engineer Yoshio Tsukuba, both experienced, level-headed aviators. At about 5:11 p.m. local time, the aircraft entered Alaskan airspace, cruising at 35,000 feet. The night was crystal clear, stars glimmering in the distance. The crew was relaxed until something strange appeared off the left side of the cockpit. Captain Terauchi later described it like this. 2 lights appeared suddenly in front of the plane. They were moving quickly and stopped right in front of us. At first, the crew thought they were U.S. military jets, perhaps performing a routine intercept. But as the lights drew closer, that explanation no longer fit. The objects were flying in perfect formation, maneuvering with precision, but without any visible wings or tail sections. And then they did something no ordinary aircraft could do. The 2 objects darted across the front of the 747, then abruptly stopped, just 500 to 1,000 feet away. The pilots could clearly see them now. Each object had 2 rectangular arrays of lights, glowing in amber and white, pulsating rhythmically as if communicating. Suddenly, intense beams of light shot toward the cockpit. The crew felt the warmth on their faces. Terauchi would later say, "The lights were so bright, I could feel their heat. We were frightened." The 2 small craft maintained their position for several minutes before suddenly breaking away, descending below the plane and disappearing into the darkness. But the encounter was far from over. Moments later, as Flight 1628 continued toward Anchorage. A massive silhouette appeared in the distance behind them, so large it blocked out the stars. Captain Terauchi looked out and saw an enormous, dark object, oval-shaped, metallic, and larger than any aircraft he had ever seen. He would later describe it in his official report as a gigantic spaceship, twice the size of an aircraft carrier. The object appeared to be following their plane, maintaining a steady distance of several miles. At this point, Terauchi contacted Anchorage Air Traffic Control and reported the unidentified traffic. Anchorage controllers quickly checked their radar. At first, nothing. Then, suddenly, a faint radar return appeared near Flight 1628. Air Traffic Control asked the crew to confirm visually. Terauchi replied, "Yes, it's there. It's following us." Controllers contacted Elmendorf Air Force Base to check their long-range radar. They too reported an unknown target moving alongside the Japan Airlines 747. This was no ordinary radar glitch. At this point, Anchorage instructed the crew to make a series of heading changes, sharp turns, to determine if the object would follow. The 747 banked left. The UFO followed. They turned right. It matched their movement. Even when the crew descended from 35,000 to 31,000 feet, the object maintained formation. It was intelligent. As the aircraft approached Fairbanks, Anchorage cleared them for approach, but the mysterious craft continued to shadow them for nearly 400 miles across Alaskan skies. Finally, after almost 50 minutes, the giant UFO suddenly vanished from radar, and from the crew's view, the nightmare was over. But the real investigation was just beginning. When Flight 1628 landed safely in Anchorage, the crew was immediately debriefed by the FAA and U.S. Air Force officials. Captain Terauchi's credibility was unquestionable, a 29-year veteran pilot known for his calm professionalism. But what he described was unlike anything anyone had ever heard. The Federal Aviation Administration took the report seriously. John Callahan, who was the FAA Division Chief for Accidents and Investigations at the time, later revealed that the agency conducted a formal inquiry involving radar data, air traffic recordings, and military radar logs. What they found was astonishing. Radar tapes confirmed that something solid was indeed present. Not a radar ghost, not a malfunction, but a real physical object moving through Alaskan airspace. And it wasn't just one sighting. Callahan would later reveal that both the FAA and NORAD radar systems tracked the unknown object for at least 31 minutes. When the investigation was complete, the FAA prepared a detailed presentation for the CIA and the Reagan administration's Scientific Advisory Board. According to Callahan, the government response was chillingly quiet. After our briefing, they said, "This event never happened. They took all the data and told us to forget it." Despite pressure to remain silent, Captain Terauchi later spoke publicly about the encounter, a move that would nearly cost him his career. He described the incident to Japanese media and UFO researchers, saying, "I am certain what we saw was not of this world." His airline, Japan Airlines temporarily grounded him and reassigned him to a desk job. It was clear that his superiors wanted the story to disappear, but the details he provided never wavered. His story remained consistent across every interview and report. He even drew detailed sketches of the objects he saw, 2 smaller craft that looked like glowing rectangular panels with pulsating lights, and 1 massive walnut-shaped mothership that dwarfed his 747. Independent analysts who reviewed the radar data confirmed that there were indeed unknown returns. So, what could it have been? Skeptics have proposed several theories over the years. Theory 1: misidentification of bright planets or stars. Some astronomers suggested that the pilots may have mistaken Jupiter and Mars for UFOs, but that doesn't explain why radar picked up a solid target, or why the objects moved intelligently in response to flight maneuvers. Theory 2: U.S. military aircraft. Others speculated it could have been classified stealth aircraft testing over Alaska, perhaps an early version of the B-2 Spirit. But in 1986, no such craft had been publicly tested, and the FAA confirmed no military traffic in that region at the time. Theory 3: atmospheric or radar anomalies. Could temperature inversions have created false radar echoes? While possible, it would not account for the crew's visual confirmation, the heat felt on their faces, or the synchronized movement with the aircraft. To this day, the incident remains officially unexplained. In 2001, FAA official John Callahan broke his silence, confirming that the entire case had been suppressed by the U.S. government. He described how the data, radar tapes, voice recordings, and reports were confiscated after a private briefing at Washington, D.C. headquarters. Callahan said, "They told us this meeting never took place and this incident never happened, but I kept copies of everything." When he finally went public decades later, his documents provided irrefutable evidence that the FAA and NORAD had tracked something unknown alongside Japan Airlines Flight 1628. In later interviews, Callahan added, "This was the most documented UFO encounter in aviation history." Even Captain Terauchi, now retired, maintained his testimony until his death. He never recanted, never changed his story. The Japan Airlines 1628 encounter changed how aviation authorities treat UFO sightings. The FAA quietly updated its reporting protocols, creating a procedure for unidentified aerial phenomena. Meanwhile, in Japan, JAL prohibited pilots from publicly discussing UFOs to avoid media attention. For decades, the event remained buried in government archives until recent Pentagon disclosures about UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, reignited interest. Modern analysts reviewing the case say it holds all the hallmarks of today's UAP reports: objects with no visible propulsion, extreme speed and maneuverability, and simultaneous radar and visual confirmation. Sound familiar? Even the U.S. Navy pilots from the 2004 Tic Tac incident described similar capabilities. So, what really followed Japan Airlines Flight 1628 across the Alaskan night sky? Was it a secret U.S. aircraft? An unknown natural phenomenon? Or something far beyond our understanding? Captain Terauchi himself once said, "The world is vast. We are but one small part of it. Perhaps we are not alone in this sky." Nearly 40 years later, no official explanation has ever been given. The radar data, the testimonies, and the silence from authorities all continue to fuel one of the most credible UFO mysteries in modern history. As we continue to uncover more about UAPs today, one thing remains certain. What happened over Alaska that night in 1986 still challenges everything we think we know about our skies. This was the Japan Airlines Flight 1628 incident, the night 3 pilots met the unknown. If you found this story fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more deep dives into the world's most mysterious encounters. And tell us in the comments, do you believe Flight 1628 really encountered something not of this earth? Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies.